Ji-Woo stepped off the transport ship and onto station Kepler 442 with her bag slung over one shoulder. Her hair fell loose around her face, dark and long after the 6-month journey through space. She pushed it back with one hand and looked around the docking bay. Metal walls stretched high above her head. Bright lights made everything look clean and cold. A tall woman in a blue uniform walked toward her. She smiled and held out her hand. "You must be Ji-Woo. I'm Hana, the station's diplomatic officer. Welcome to Kepler 442. Ji-Woo shook her hand. "Thank you. I'm excited to finally be here. The trip felt like forever." "I bet it did," Hana said. She picked up one of Ji-Woo's bags. "Come on. I'll show you to your quarters first. Then we can talk about the Frackin." They walked through long hallways. Ji-Woo saw other humans working at computer stations and carrying equipment. Some nodded at her as she passed. The station felt busy but organized. Everything had its place. "How many Vraken are on the station?" Ji-Woo asked. 12 adults and 3 younglings," Hana replied. "The younglings are why you're here. The adults don't want to talk much, but they let us observe the young ones. They think it will help us understand each other better." Ji-Woo nodded. She had studied everything she could find about the Vraken during her journey. They were predators from a cold world covered in ice and stone. They had sharp teeth and claws. Their bodies were covered in thick fur that changed color with the seasons. Most humans felt nervous around them at first, but Ji-Woo wasn't nervous. She had worked with dangerous animals her whole life. She knew that understanding came from watching and learning, not from fear. Hana stopped at a door and pressed her hand against a panel. The door slid open. "Here's your room. It's small, but it has everything you need. Get settled. Someone will come get you in 2 hours for your first observation session." Ji-Woo stepped inside. The room had a bed, a desk, a small bathroom, and a window that looked out into space. Stars scattered across the black like salt spilled on a dark table. She dropped her bags and sat on the bed. Her hair fell forward again. She reached into her bag and pulled out a blue silk ribbon. Her mother had given it to her before she left Earth. Ji-Woo gathered her hair at the back of her head and tied it up with the ribbon, making a simple bow. The ritual felt comforting after the long journey. 2 hours later, a young man with tired eyes knocked on her door. He introduced himself as Tai Yang, one of the station's engineers. "I'm supposed to take you to the observation room," he said. "Fair warning, though. The younglings are loud today." "Loud how?" Ji-Woo asked as they walked. "They make this clicking sound when they're excited. It echoes. You'll see." The observation room had a large window that looked into another chamber. The chamber had been designed to feel like the Vraken homeworld. Rocks and ice formations filled the space. The temperature was kept far below what humans found comfortable. 3 Vraken younglings tumbled across the floor, wrestling with each other. They were smaller than the adults, but still large, about the size of adult humans. Their fur was silver-gray with dark stripes. When they opened their mouths, Ji-Woo could see rows of sharp teeth. An adult Vraken sat in the corner, watching the younglings play. The adult's eyes were golden and intelligent. They flicked toward the observation window, staring directly at Ji-Woo for a moment before looking away. "That's Thros," Tai Yang said quietly. "He's the elder of this group. He doesn't talk to us much, but he makes sure the younglings don't get into too much trouble." Ji-Woo sat down at the observation desk and opened her notebook. She had brought an old-fashioned paper one because she liked the feel of writing by hand. She started taking notes about the younglings' behavior. The younglings chased each other around the rocks. They pounced and rolled. Sometimes they made soft growling sounds. Other times they clicked their teeth together rapidly. Ji-Woo's hair started to come loose from the ribbon. She reached back without thinking and tightened the bow, her fingers working quickly. When she looked up, all 3 younglings had stopped playing. They stared at the observation window, their golden eyes fixed on her hands. "That's weird," Tai Yang muttered. "They never stop playing like that." The smallest youngling, who had lighter fur than the others, took a step closer to the window. It tilted its head to one side, watching Ji-woo's hands. The other two younglings moved closer too. Ji-woo lowered her hands slowly. "Did I do something wrong?" "I don't know," Tae-yang said. "Maybe keep still for a minute." But the younglings didn't look away. They sat down in front of the window, all three in a row, staring at Ji-woo, their tails curled around their bodies. One of them made a soft clicking sound, different from the excited clicking Tae-yang had mentioned. This sound was quieter, almost gentle. Thros, the elder, stood up and walked over to the younglings. He looked at them, then at Ji-woo, then back at the younglings. He made a rumbling sound in his chest. The younglings didn't move. Ji-woo felt a strange sensation in her stomach. Something important had just happened, but she didn't understand what. "I think," she said slowly, "we need to record everything that just happened. Every detail." Tae-yang nodded and started typing on his computer. "Already on it." The younglings watched Ji-woo for another 10 minutes before they finally went back to playing. But every few minutes, one of them would stop and look at the window again, checking if she was still there. When the observation session ended, Ji-woo walked back to her quarters with her notebook full of observations. She had so many questions. Why had the younglings reacted to her fixing her hair? What did that gentle clicking mean? Why had Thros seemed concerned? She sat at her desk and stared at her notes. The blue ribbon in her hair felt suddenly heavy, like it meant something she couldn't quite grasp. Outside her window, the stars continued their ancient patterns across the dark. Somewhere on the station, 3 Vraken younglings curled up to sleep, their minds full of thoughts about the strange human with the colored string in her hair. Ji-woo woke to the sound of her door chime beeping. She sat up in bed, confused. The clock on her wall showed 0600 hours. She had only been asleep for 5 hours. She stumbled to the door and pressed the button to open it. The hallway was empty. No one stood there. She looked left and right, seeing nothing but the quiet corridor lit by dim morning lights. Then she looked down. Something lay on the floor just outside her door. It was white and made of cloth. Ji-woo bent down and picked it up. The material felt soft and stretchy. She turned it over in her hands and realized it was a medical bandage, the kind used for wrapping sprained ankles or wrists. Someone had tried to tie it into a bow, like the ribbon in her hair, but the bow was clumsy and loose. The ends weren't even. Ji-woo stood in the doorway holding the bandage, her mind working through the strangeness of it. Who would leave a bandage outside her door? Why would they tie it into a bow? She brought it inside and set it on her desk. Then she got dressed and went to the station's cafeteria for breakfast. Tae-yang was already there, drinking coffee that looked too dark to be healthy. He waved when he saw her. "You look confused," he said, as she sat down with her food tray. "Someone left a bandage outside my door this morning," Ji-woo said. "It was tied into a bow, a really bad bow, but still a bow." Tae-yang raised his eyebrows. "That's weird. Did you check the security footage?" "Not yet. I came straight here." "Want me to look at it?" Ji-woo nodded. "Please." Tae-yang pulled out his tablet and tapped on the screen for a few minutes. His eyes widened. Oh, you need to see this." He turned the tablet so Ji-woo could see the screen. The video showed her hallway from above. The timestamp said 0312 hours. 3 small shapes moved into frame. The Vraken younglings. They walked on all fours, moving quietly. The smallest one carried something white in its mouth. They stopped at Ji-woo's door. The smallest youngling dropped the bandage on the floor. Then all 3 of them tried to arrange it with their claws. They pushed and pulled at it, trying to make it look like something. Finally, they gave up and hurried away down the hall. "They stole a medical bandage," Tae-yang said, "and tried to give it to you as a gift." Ji-woo stared at the screen. "But why?" No idea, but it's kind of funny. Look how frustrated they get when they can't tie the bow right. Jiwoo watched the video again. The younglings had been so careful, so deliberate. This wasn't random behavior. This meant something. I need to talk to Hana, Jiwoo said. She found Hana in her office, working through a stack of reports. When Jiwoo explained what had happened, Hana leaned back in her chair and frowned. The younglings left their quarters in the middle of the night? According to the video, yes. That's concerning. They're supposed to stay in their section. If they're wandering around, Hana trailed off. I'll need to tell Thros. He's responsible for keeping them contained. Wait, Jiwoo said. Before you do that, can I try to observe them again? I want to see how they behaved today. Hana thought about it for a moment. Okay, but if they escape again tonight, we'll have to take stronger measures. We can't have them wandering the station freely. Jiwoo went to the observation room that afternoon. The three younglings were playing again, but differently than yesterday. They kept looking at the window, searching for her. When Jiwoo sat down at the desk, all three younglings stopped and stared. The smallest one made that soft clicking sound again. The other two clicked back. Jiwoo reached up and touched the blue ribbon in her hair without thinking. Immediately, the younglings moved closer to the window. Their eyes followed her hand. They like your ribbon, Taeyang said from behind her. She hadn't heard him come in. I think you're right, Jiwoo said slowly. But I don't understand why. She spent 3 hours watching the younglings. They played, but less than before. They kept coming back to the window to stare at her. At one point, the middle-sized youngling pawed at the glass, making a whining sound. That night, Jiwoo couldn't sleep. She lay in bed thinking about the younglings and the bandage and the way they watched her hands. Around 0200 hours, she got up and pulled out her notes from Earth about animal behavior. She had studied grooming rituals in pack animals. Many species bonded through grooming, through touching and arranging each other's fur or feathers. Some animals gave gifts to show affection or build relationships. Could the younglings think her ribbon was part of a grooming ritual? The thought made her sit up straight. Fracken were pack animals. The research notes said they had complex social structures. What if they saw her tying her hair as some kind of pack bonding behavior? The next morning, another gift waited outside her door. This time it was a piece of torn fabric, dark blue and shiny. It looked like it came from a uniform. Someone had tied it into a messy knot. Jiwoo picked it up and checked the security footage. Same three younglings, same time, same careful, clumsy attempt to make it look like her ribbon. The day after that, she found a strip of leather that looked like it came from a tool belt. The younglings had chewed the ends, probably trying to tie it. By the fourth day, the pattern was clear. Every night, the younglings snuck out of their section. Every night, they stole something. Every night, they tried to turn it into a ribbon and left it at her door. But on the fifth morning, things got complicated. Jiwoo was walking to breakfast when she heard shouting. She followed the sound to the medical bay. A doctor named Min-ho stood in the hallway, looking angry. "My entire supply of bandages is gone," he said to Hana. "All of them. Every single roll." Hana pressed her fingers against her forehead like she had a headache. "Are you sure?" "I counted inventory yesterday. Today the cabinet is empty. Someone took them." Jiwoo felt her stomach drop. She thought about the bandage outside her door on the first morning. "I think I know who took them," she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. That afternoon, security found the missing bandages. The younglings had hidden them in their quarters, behind a pile of rocks. They had tried to tie all of them into bows. The result was a tangled mess of white fabric and frustration. "This is getting out of hand," Hana said at the emergency meeting. "They're stealing from all over the station. Yesterday, someone's data cable went missing. This morning, Ambassador Chen from the Mars delegation complained that his ceremonial scarf is gone." Ambassador Chen? Jiwoo asked. From Mars? He's visiting the station this week for talks with the Fracken elders. His scarf is expensive and important. If the younglings took it— Hana didn't finish the sentence. Jiwoo looked down at her hands. This was her fault somehow. The younglings had fixated on her. They were stealing because of her. I need to figure out what they want, she said. Give me one more day. I'll solve this. Hana looked tired. One more day. Then we have to tell Thros, and the younglings will probably be sent back to their homeworld. Jiwoo nodded. She had 24 hours to understand what the younglings wanted, or 3 young aliens would lose their chance to build a bridge between species. That night, she stayed awake, waiting. At 03:15 hours, her door chime beeped softly. She opened the door immediately. 3 Fracken younglings sat in the hallway, staring up at her with golden eyes. The smallest one held something red and shiny in its mouth. Ambassador Chen's ceremonial scarf. Jiwoo knelt down slowly. Hello, she whispered. The younglings didn't run. They clicked softly at her, a sound like wind chimes made of bone. Jiwoo stayed very still, kneeling in her doorway. The 3 Vracken younglings watched her with eyes that caught the hallway lights and turned them gold. The smallest one still held Ambassador Chen's red scarf in its mouth. The fabric draped down on both sides of its jaw, shimmering. You shouldn't have that, Jiwoo whispered. The ambassador is very upset. The smallest youngling took a step forward. It dropped the scarf at Jiwoo's feet and made that soft clicking sound. The other 2 younglings clicked back, like they were talking to each other in a language she couldn't understand. Then all 3 of them sat down and stared at her hair, at the blue ribbon. Jiwoo reached up slowly and touched the ribbon. All 3 younglings leaned forward, their attention completely focused. She pulled the ribbon loose and her hair fell around her shoulders. The younglings made a sound she had never heard before, something between a whine and a purr. You really do like this, she said softly. She held the ribbon out toward them. The middle-sized youngling crept forward until its nose almost touched her hand. It sniffed the ribbon carefully. Then it looked up at her face and clicked 3 times, quick and sharp. Behind the younglings, a shadow moved. Jiwoo looked up and saw Thros, the Vracken elder, standing at the end of the hallway. His golden eyes watched the scene with an expression she couldn't read. His tail flicked once, slowly. The younglings must have sensed him because they all turned around. Thros made a deep rumbling sound in his chest. It wasn't angry, exactly, but it was clearly a command. The younglings stood up, reluctant. The smallest one looked back at Jiwoo one more time before they all followed Thros back down the hallway. Jiwoo picked up the red scarf and went back into her room. She sat on her bed holding the scarf and the blue ribbon, trying to piece together what was happening. The next morning, she returned the scarf to Ambassador Chen. He was a small man with gray hair and an angry expression. Where did you find it? He demanded. The Vracken younglings brought it to me, Jiwoo said. They didn't mean any harm. I think they were confused. Confused? Chen's voice got louder. They stole from me. From an ambassador. This is a diplomatic incident. Hana tried to calm him down, but Chen kept talking about respect and proper protocol. Jiwoo left them arguing and went to find Tai Yang. She found him in the engineering bay, working on a broken air filter. The younglings are going to be in serious trouble, she told him. Chen is demanding that Thros punish them. Tai Yang wiped his hands on a rag. What are they going to do? I don't know. But I need to understand why the younglings are doing this. It's not random stealing. They're choosing specific items. Everything they take is fabric or flexible material. Everything they give me, they try to turn into ribbons or bows. So they like ribbons, Tai Yang said. Why? That's what I need to figure out. But before she could investigate further, more things started disappearing. Minho, the doctor, reported that someone had taken all the surgical tape from the medical bay. A technician named Da-un said her hair ties were missing from her locker. A security guard discovered that the decorative cords on 3 different uniforms had been carefully chewed off during the night. By midday, the entire station was talking about the thefts. People checked their belongings and locked their doors. Some started calling the younglings the bandits or the ribbon thieves. Hana called a meeting in the conference room. Everyone crowded in, talking loudly. "This has to stop," Hana said, raising her voice to be heard. "We've contacted Thros and explained the situation. He's agreed to keep the younglings confined to their quarters permanently." "Good," someone said from the back of the room. "But," Hana continued, "this means we'll lose access to studying them. The whole point of having them here was to learn about Vraken development and behavior. If they're locked up, we learn nothing." "Better than having them steal everything on the station," Chen said. He sat in the front row with his arms crossed. Jiwoo stood up. "Wait, please. Give me one more chance to figure this out. I think I'm close to understanding." "You've been saying that for days," Chen said. "Meanwhile, these creatures run wild through our station, taking whatever they want." "They're not creatures," Jiwoo said, trying to keep her voice calm. "They're children. Young, curious children who are trying to communicate something." "By stealing? Maybe stealing is the only way they know how to communicate with us. We don't speak their language. They don't speak ours. But they're trying." Hana looked tired. "Jiwoo, I want to believe you, but I have an entire station of people who are angry and worried. I have an ambassador who's threatening to file an official complaint. What can you possibly do in one more day?" "Let me talk to Thros," Jiwoo said. "Let me try to ask him what the younglings are doing." The room went quiet. No one had really talked to Thros before. He answered simple questions sometimes, but he never had long conversations with humans. The Vraken kept to themselves. "That's not a bad idea," Taeyang said from the side of the room. "Someone should have asked him days ago." Hana thought about it. "Okay, you can try. But if he won't talk, or if you can't figure this out, the younglings stay locked up. Agreed?" Jiwoo nodded. "Agreed." That afternoon, she stood outside the Vraken quarters, her heart beating fast. She had never been this close to the Vraken section before. The door was made of thick metal. A small window let her see inside. She pressed the communication button. "Elder Thros, my name is Jiwoo. I'm the human studying your younglings. May I speak with you?" Silence. She waited for a full minute, then tried again. "Please, I think the younglings are trying to tell me something, but I don't understand. I need your help." More silence. Jiwoo was about to give up when the door opened. Thros stood on the other side. Up close. He was bigger than she expected. His shoulders were broad and muscular under his thick fur. His eyes looked ancient and wise. "Come," he said in a deep voice. It was the first time she had heard him speak. Jiwoo stepped inside. The Vraken quarters were cold. Her breath made small clouds in the air. The walls were bare metal and frost covered the corners. In the center of the room, 3 small nests made of fabric and cushions were arranged in a circle. The 3 younglings sat in their nests watching her. They didn't move, but their tails twitched with excitement. "They have caused problems," Thros said. He didn't sound angry, just stating a fact. "Yes," Jiwoo said. "They've been taking things, stealing. But I don't think they mean harm." "No," Thros agreed. "No harm. But humans do not understand." "Then help me understand." "Please, why do they take fabric? Why do they try to make ribbons?" Thros looked at the younglings, then back at Jiwoo. He seemed to be deciding something. "You tie your fur," he said finally. "Your head fur, with colored string." Jiwoo touched her hair. "Yes, it keeps it out of my face." "Vraken do not tie fur, but we groom. We arrange fur of packmates. Show care, show family." Thros walked over to the smallest youngling and ran his claws gently through its fur, smoothing it down. The youngling purred. "Grooming?" Jiwoo said. Understanding started to bloom in her mind. "You groom each other to show your family." "Yes, family. Pack. Same thing." Thros looked at her seriously. "Younglings see you tie fur. They think it is grooming. Very strange grooming." "But grooming." "So when they bring me ribbons, they want to groom you. They want you in pack, in family." Thros's tail flicked. "They think if they bring string, you will tie their fur too. Make them family." Jiwoo felt something tight in her chest. The younglings weren't stealing. They were trying to adopt her. They were trying to say, in the only way they knew how, that they wanted her to be part of their family. She looked at the three younglings. They stared back with hope in their golden eyes. Jiwoo stood in the cold room, looking at the three younglings who wanted to be her family. Her throat felt tight. She had spent years studying animals, learning their behaviors, watching from behind glass. But this was different. This was personal. "They want me in their pack," she said quietly. "Because I tied my hair." Thros made a rumbling sound that might have been agreement. "Young ones do not understand humans yet. They see grooming behavior. They respond. Very simple. But they stole from people. They made everyone angry." "Yes," Thros said. "This is problem. Frack and Young learn by doing. They do not ask permission. They see what they want, they take. On Homeworld, this is acceptable. Young ones share everything. No ownership of small things." Jiwoo thought about that. On Earth, human children had to be taught not to take things that didn't belong to them. But what if you grew up in a culture where everything was shared, where taking what you needed was normal? "They don't understand human rules about property," she said. "No, they are too young." Thros walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "I have tried to teach, but teaching takes time. Humans do not have patience for this." "Some humans don't," Jiwoo admitted. "But I do, and I think I can help if you'll let me." Thros turned to look at her. "How?" "Let me explain to the others what the younglings are trying to do. Let me show them that this is about family and communication, not about stealing. Maybe if people understand, they won't be so angry." "And if they are still angry?" Jiwoo took a breath. "Then I'll take responsibility. I'm the one who tied my hair in front of them. I started this even if I didn't know it." The smallest youngling made a soft sound. It climbed out of its nest and walked over to Jiwoo. She held very still as it came closer. The youngling pressed its head against her leg, like a cat asking for attention. "Krith likes you very much," Thros said. "The other two are Shaka and Voss. They also like you, but Krith is boldest." Jiwoo slowly reached down and touched Krith's head. The fur was softer than she expected, thick and warm. Krith purred, a sound like distant thunder. "Can I try something?" Jiwoo asked Thros. He tilted his head. "What? Can I groom them? The proper way, the way Vraken do it?" Thros was quiet for a long moment. "You are not Vraken." "No, but maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe what matters is that I try to speak their language instead of expecting them to speak mine." Thros made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You are strange human. Most humans want us to change for them. I'm a xenobiologist. My job is to understand, not to change." "Very well," Thros said. "I will show you." He called Krith over. The youngling bounded to him eagerly. Thros ran his claws through Krith's fur in long, smooth strokes, starting at the head and moving down the back. He paid special attention to the areas behind the ears and along the spine. Krith closed its eyes and purred louder. "Grooming is about touch," Thros explained. "About showing care. You smooth the fur. You check for injury or parasite. You spend time. This is how pack bonds." Jiwoo watched carefully. Then she knelt down and gestured to Krith. May I try? Krith looked at Thros. Thros nodded. Krith came to Jiwoo slowly, almost shyly. Jiwoo ran her fingers through the youngling's fur the way Thros had shown her. The fur was warm and thick. She could feel the muscles underneath, the steady rhythm of breathing. Krith leaned into her touch and made that gentle clicking sound. Shaka and Voss came over too, wanting attention. Soon Jiwoo was surrounded by 3 purring younglings, all pressing against her, all wanting to be groomed. "They accept you," Thros said. There was surprise in his voice. "Very quickly. Usually takes much longer." Jiwoo smiled. "Maybe because I'm trying to understand them instead of being afraid." She stayed in the Fracken quarters for 2 hours, grooming the younglings and talking with Thros. He told her about Fracken culture, about how packs worked, about the importance of physical bonding. She told him about human families, about how humans showed love in different ways. "We don't groom each other the way you do," she explained. "But we have other rituals. We hug. We hold hands. We sit close together. And you tie fur with colored string," Thros added. "Yes, though it's more about function than bonding. My hair gets in my eyes when it's loose. But younglings do not know this. They see ritual. They want to participate." Jiwoo looked at Krith, who had fallen asleep against her leg. "What if I taught them about human customs? What if I showed them the right way to give gifts?" "You would do this?" "Of course. They're children. They're trying to learn. Someone needs to teach them." Thros sat down, a graceful movement despite his size. "Most humans see younglings and feel fear. See teeth, see claws, think danger. You see younglings and feel—" "What?" Jiwoo thought about it. "Curiosity, affection. They remind me of puppies, actually. Big, toothy puppies who don't know their own strength yet." Thros made that laughing sound again. "Puppies. Small Earth predators. Yes, this is good comparison." When Jiwoo finally left the Vraken quarters, she went straight to Hana's office. Hana looked up from her computer, surprised. "You talked to Thros for 2 hours," Hana said. "That's longer than all our previous conversations with him combined." "I understand what's happening now," Jiwoo said. She sat down across from Hana and explained everything. The grooming rituals, the pack bonding, the cultural misunderstanding about property. Hana listened without interrupting. When Jiwoo finished, Hana leaned back in her chair and rubbed her eyes. "So the younglings think you're going to adopt them?" "Not exactly. They want to adopt me. Into their pack. By stealing things and bringing them to you. They're not stealing in their minds. They're gathering grooming materials. On their world, that's normal behavior. No one owns small objects. Everything is shared." Hana was quiet for a moment. "Ambassador Chen isn't going to like this explanation." "Ambassador Chen doesn't have to like it. He just has to understand it." Jiwoo leaned forward. "Hana, this is why we're here. This is why we brought the Fracken to the station. To learn about each other. To build bridges between species. We can't do that if we punish them for being exactly what they are." "So what do you suggest?" "Let me call a meeting. Let me explain to everyone what's really happening. And let me work with the younglings to teach them about human customs. They're smart. They can learn. They just need someone to teach them." Hana thought about it. "If I let you do this and it goes wrong, we could have a serious diplomatic problem." "If we don't do this, we definitely have a diplomatic problem. The younglings will be sent home in disgrace. The Fracken will think we don't want their children here. Years of careful negotiations could fall apart." "You really care about them, don't you?" "The younglings." Jiwoo thought about Krith's soft purring, about the way all 3 younglings had pressed against her like she was someone important, someone worth knowing. "Yes," she said simply. "I care about them." Hana picked up her tablet and started typing. "Okay, I'll schedule a station-wide meeting for tomorrow morning. You'll have 30 minutes to explain. But Jiwoo, If this doesn't work, if people are still angry, I won't be able to protect the younglings. Or you. I understand. That night, Jiwoo lay in bed preparing her speech. She needed to make the station's crew understand. She needed to help them see what she saw. Around midnight, her door chime beeped softly. She opened it and found nothing. But when she looked down, there was something on the floor. 3 objects, arranged in a careful line. A piece of ribbon, dark green. A strip of cloth, neatly folded. A leather cord, unmarked and new. But these objects were different from the others. They weren't torn or stolen. They weren't chewed or damaged. Someone had given them to the younglings. Someone had helped them. Jiwoo picked up the items and saw a note underneath, written in shaky human letters that someone must have taught the younglings to make. For Pack. For family. For Jiwoo. She held the note and the gifts and felt something warm spread through her chest. The younglings were learning. They were trying. Tomorrow, she would help everyone else understand that too. The conference room was packed. Every seat was filled, and people stood along the walls. Jiwoo saw Minho from the medical bay, Da-eun from maintenance, security guards, technicians, scientists, and diplomats. Ambassador Chen sat in the front row, his face showing no emotion. Hana stood at the front of the room and called for quiet. Thank you all for coming. As you know, we've been dealing with some unusual behavior from the Vraken younglings. Dr. Jiwoo has been investigating, and she has some insights to share. Please give her your attention. Jiwoo walked to the front. Her hands shook slightly, so she clasped them together. She looked at all the faces staring at her. Some looked curious, some looked angry, some just looked tired. I know you're all frustrated, she began. Things have been disappearing. Your belongings aren't safe. You feel like the younglings are stealing from you. I understand that. I would feel the same way. She paused. But I need to tell you what's really happening, because it's not what you think. She explained everything she had learned from Thros. She talked about grooming rituals and pack bonding. She described how Vraken culture worked, how young ones learned by doing, how sharing was automatic and expected. On their world, Jiwoo said, taking small objects to use in grooming isn't stealing, it's normal. It's how they show affection and build family bonds. They didn't know they were breaking our rules because no one taught them our rules yet. That doesn't excuse the behavior, someone called from the back. You're right, Jiwoo said. It doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. And explanation is the first step toward solution. She clicked a button, and a video appeared on the screen behind her. It showed her sitting with the 3 younglings, grooming them the way Thros had taught her. The younglings purred and clicked, pressing against her with obvious trust. This is what they wanted from the beginning, Jiwoo said. Connection, family. They saw me tie my hair and thought it was a grooming ritual. They wanted to participate. They wanted to show me they cared by bringing me grooming materials. They just didn't know how to ask permission first. Ambassador Chen raised his hand. This is all very touching, Dr. Jiwoo, but intention doesn't change the fact that my ceremonial scarf was taken without permission. In my culture, that's theft. It's disrespectful. Jiwoo nodded. You're absolutely right, Ambassador, and that's why I've been working with the younglings to teach them about permission and respect for property. They're learning, but learning takes time. She clicked to another video. This one showed Krith, the smallest youngling, approaching Tai Yang in a hallway. Krith held out a paw, waiting. Tai Yang placed a small piece of wire in the paw. Krith clicked happily and carried the wire away. Tai Yang has been helping me teach them to ask before taking, Jiwoo explained. It's a simple exchange. They ask. He gives. They learn that asking works better than taking. Tai Yang stood up from his seat. It's true. I've been giving them scrap materials from the engineering bay. Wire, fabric scraps, broken cables, stuff we'd throw away anyway. They're excited to get it, because someone gave it to them willingly. Dawoon raised her hand. I've been helping too. I gave them some old hair ties I didn't need anymore. They were so happy. They kept clicking at me for like 10 minutes. Minho spoke up next. I gave them expired medical tape, the kind we can't use on patients anymore but is still perfectly fine for other purposes. They loved it. Jiwoo felt relief flood through her. See? When we work with them, instead of against them, everyone benefits. The younglings learn our customs. We learn their language. We build understanding. Ambassador Chen stood up. Everyone turned to look at him. Dr. Jiwoo, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm not convinced. These are predatory aliens. They have sharp teeth and claws. How do we know this isn't just clever manipulation? How do we know they won't hurt someone? Before Jiwoo could answer, the door to the conference room opened. Thros walked in, his massive form making people shift nervously in their seats. Behind him came the three younglings. The room went silent. Thros walked to the front and stood next to Jiwoo. The younglings sat down, their eyes scanning the crowd of humans. I am Thros, the elder said in his deep voice. I speak for young ones. They cannot speak your words yet, but they understand more than you think. He looked at Ambassador Chen. They know they caused harm. They know you are angry. They wish to make repair. Krith stood up and walked toward Chen. The ambassador tensed. Several security guards moved forward, but Thros raised a paw. Wait, he said. Watch. Krith stopped in front of Chen and sat down. Slowly, carefully, the youngling reached behind itself and pulled something forward. It was Chen's ceremonial scarf, cleaned and neatly folded. Krith placed it on the ground in front of the ambassador, then backed away and lowered its head, showing its neck. That is submission, Thros explained. That is apology. Krith offers throat to show trust, shows vulnerability. This is highest form of sorry in our culture. Chen stared at the youngling. He bent down and picked up his scarf. It's been cleaned. Yes, Thros said. Young one spent many hours learning how to clean fabric without damaging. Learned from station computer files. Worked very hard. Shaka and Voss came forward then. Each of them carried objects. Medical tape for Minho, carefully rolled. Hair ties for Dayun, arranged in a neat bundle. Wire for Tai Yang, coiled properly. They distributed the items to their owners, each time lowering their heads in submission after. The room was completely quiet. Jiwoo saw people's faces changing, softening. They were seeing the younglings differently now, not as thieves, not as dangerous predators, but as children trying to make things right. They can learn, Jiwoo said quietly. They want to learn. They just need us to teach them with patience instead of anger. Chen looked at the scarf in his hands. He looked at Krith, who still sat with head lowered. Then he did something unexpected. He knelt down in front of the youngling. Thank you, he said, for returning this and for cleaning it so carefully. Krith looked up, surprised. It clicked softly. Chen reached out slowly and touched the youngling's head, the way he might pet a dog. Krith leaned into the touch and purred. They're just children, Chen said, standing up. I was so focused on protocol and rules that I forgot they're children. Easy mistake to make, Thros said. They are large. They have teeth. They look dangerous, but inside, still young, still learning. Hana stepped forward. So here's my proposal. We continue to host the younglings on the station, but we implement a teaching program. Dr. Jiwoo will work with them daily on human customs and proper behavior. Anyone interested in helping can volunteer. We'll create a schedule for supervised interactions. And we'll set up a donation box where people can leave materials the younglings can use safely. What if they steal again? Someone asked. Then we teach again, Jiwoo said. That's what you do with children. You teach, they make mistakes. You teach again, eventually they learn. People started nodding. The mood in the room had shifted from angry to curious, from fearful to hopeful. "I'll volunteer," Tae Yang said. "I can teach them about tools and how to ask permission to use equipment." "I'll help with medical basics," Minho added. "Teach them what they can touch and what they can't." More volunteers came forward. Da-Yun offered to teach them about station maintenance. A teacher named Yuna said she could help them learn basic human language. Even Ambassador Chen said he would share information about diplomatic protocol. Jiwoo felt tears prick her eyes. This was what she had hoped for. This was how bridges got built between species, not through rules and restrictions, but through patience and understanding. Over the next few weeks, the younglings became a regular part of station life. People got used to seeing them in the hallways, always supervised, always learning. They learned to ask before taking. They learned which areas were off limits. They learned simple words like please and thank you and may I. The donation box filled with ribbons and fabric scraps and soft materials. The younglings would check it every day, clicking with excitement at each new gift. They learned that giving and receiving was mutual, that both sides needed to participate. Jiwoo continued her grooming sessions with them. Other humans started joining in, learning the proper way to show affection to Vrakan younglings. Krith, Shaka, and Voss bonded with dozens of humans, creating a pack that crossed species lines. One evening, Jiwoo sat in the observation room writing her reports. Krith lay beside her, half asleep. The youngling had grown in the months since Jiwoo arrived. Its fur was thicker now, its muscles stronger, but it still liked to be close to her. Thros entered the room and sat down. "You have done good work here," he said. "We all did," Jiwoo replied. "It took everyone." "Yes, but you started it. You saw younglings not as problems but as children. That made difference." Jiwoo reached down and stroked Krith's fur. "I just tried to understand. That's what I was trained to do." "Most training does not include heart," Thros said. "You brought heart. That is why younglings love you. That is why humans listen to you." "What happens when it's time for them to go home?" Jiwoo asked. She had been thinking about this more lately. The younglings couldn't stay on the station forever. "They will remember this," Thros said. "They will tell other young ones about the human who tied her fur with colored string, about the humans who taught them with patience. They will build bridges." He paused. "You could come to Homeworld, continue teaching, continue building bridges." Jiwoo looked at him in surprise. "You would want that?" "Younglings would want that. I would want that. Our people need to learn from yours. Your people need to learn from ours. You are good teacher." Jiwoo thought about Earth, about her old life there. Then she thought about 3 younglings who had tried so hard to bring her ribbons, who had wanted so desperately to make her family. "I'll think about it," she said, but she already knew her answer. That night, she found 3 perfect ribbons outside her door. 1 blue, 1 green, 1 red. They were tied into careful, beautiful bows. The younglings had finally learned how to do it right. She picked them up and smiled. In the morning, she would wear all 3 ribbons in her hair. She would show the younglings that their gifts were accepted, that they were family, that they had succeeded in their strange, wonderful mission to adopt the human who tied her fur with colored string.